Jabbilota ko ya jabbilota odaa jala kan nama nyaatu nu keessa jira. Jabbilota ko ya jabbilota odaa jala kan nama nyaatu nu keessa jira. Amaaloo. Masanggamala pambatu talba facava katati talba facava katati tokko du'e tokkon taa'u wal gaggalaba katati emmulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa emmulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa masanggamala pambatu talba facava katati talba facava katati tokko nyaatee tokkon taa'u wal gaggalaba katati emmulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa emmulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa masanggamala pambatu.
Daawwattoota akkam jirtu? How are you guys doing? Indagadhee miti. I'm mixing up English and Oromo because I got so used to doing my intros in Oromo. Today is a special edition. I have a special guest, Kasech Rayawati, and she's going to tell us her perspective from Australia on the Ethiopian crisis that is going on right now. Kasech, I appreciate you for coming to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
For sure. Dubbii Oromoo means Oromo affairs.
Oromo affairs, okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's what Dubbii Oromoo means. So what we do on the show is basically get to the truth on Oromo affairs.
Well, good. I like to speak the truth.
For sure, for sure. That's why I'd like to invite only people that speaks the truth.
Thank you.
For sure. And on your Facebook, you are just destroying Abiy, putting him to shame 3 times a day.
Yeah. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's right. We can just take a look a little bit of how your Facebook goes. Go back so the fans can see it from the beginning. Here you are saying thank you to Bill Shorter for standing by the people of Tigray. For those who don't know, he was the opposition leader and a big deal.
Very big deal.
And that's right. And you said this long time ago, Abiy's biggest fear is Oromo women and Tigray women having a coffee. Because, you know, on that coffee meeting, they're going to talk about how to get rid of Abiy. And they're going to invite their men too, you're saying, and they're going to talk about how to get rid of Abiy.
Oh, we've got some things that have been unshared there.
Yeah, and a well-done protest there. And here in Amara is being arrested, and the Amara protesters are yelling at English police officers, like English-speaking police officers in their Amharic languages.
It doesn't make sense to me. How do I understand? But that might link down to a further post where down there, and I say
these people lived inside Oromia for 100 years. They refuse to learn our language. They force us to speak their language. It's disrespectful people, very disrespectful people.
We'll get to that and why I started fighting when I heard some of the stories.
Yep, and you're saying here this one is for Abiy supporters. God have mercy on the on the lands that let you speak, on the land that let you take refuge. There really needs to be a moral IQ test before green card is approved. So they do need a moral.
Last part I made a mistake in my rant, but yeah, the moral IQ seems to be very low these days, especially coming out after Abiy spoke yesterday.
Right.
And their justifications of what he said just blows my mind.
Right. Mm. And they have no evidence whatsoever, and the soldiers raped the women and all of that, and Abiy is fine with that, and he's saying my soldiers got hit with a machete so they can go rape all these women. It's not the women that hit him with a machete.
Well, hell no.
These are they got no guts to go fight the Tigreñas in the mountains. So they just drop the bombs on a city. That's why they're committing a war crime, because they can't go on the ground and fight. They can't fight soldiers to soldier. They can't fight.
No, it's shameful, to be honest.
Very shameful. They either come at night and burn the villages and terrorize like innocent people. They never face the soldiers.
No, and the worst things that I hear from them is that they're attacking family members whose family may be soldiers. Or the worst one I heard yesterday was on the weekend. An 80-year-old man was targeted because his son fought in Badami. His son died, lost his life in Badami. So obviously he's had to grieve for the last 15 years without his child. And at 80 years old, the soldiers came in, arrested him without any justification, and just tortured him for 2 or 3 days before the elders were able to get him freed.
Right.
Only because his son fought in Badami. That implies that it was Eritrean soldiers.
Right.
And this is not even alive. He's one of those nameless graves. So it's just, for me, that how can you stay quiet against that?
For sure.
Behavior, it's insane.
For sure. Well, Kasich, let's get to know you quick. Can you tell me a little bit about your name? How did you get this name?
So Kasich is obviously an Amharic name. It was given to me from a friend. It kind of comes off my own actual name. My original name that I was given when I started my involvement in Ethiopia was Berhan, but she changed it to Kasich. She said that's an old lady's name, so we're going to change it. That's the first part.
Right.
The second part is Rayaweti. I kind of made that term up. I was going under an alias for a long time, just writing and, commenting on things, not wanting to really get my family in danger. So both my children are both half Tigrayan children, So that's where it started, wanting to teach them their identity, who they are, where they're from. Right. So I started to learn history, like Ethiopian history or Tigrayan history. I've been to the country a few times. I've traveled around. I've traveled to Oromia. I've traveled through Tigray, and just the people are amazing. So people are welcoming. They're humble. Their hospitality, is just like something you don't experience anywhere else in the world. The Raya part comes from the fact I went to Raya and I had this really insane experience, and I was like, I can't get out of the car, and my driver was like, you've got to get out, and I said, no, I don't want to get out. I just had this really deep, crazy feeling. And then the next day, I didn't want to leave after I got out, and then the next day, I heard Raya music, and I just started crying. And my friend was like, why are you crying? This is insane. I'm like, I just love this music. Where is this from? And they said, it's from Raya. It's from the region you didn't want to get out of the car.
Right.
And so ever since then, I've just been obsessed with Raya culture.
For sure.
Then, my children are Tagar, so they're not even from that part of Tigray. They are from a different part, but I don't know, Raya just drew me. So I guess, and it's kind of apt, it's obviously a sensitive area, but it's I get why I'm drawn there, and especially because I'm drawn by the culture, and I know that culture is very, very by Oromo culture. So it all just has unfolded very organically. Sure. My advocacy for both fronts and both fights.
I see.
He kind of unites all of that, and I guess Raya is kind of the center ground between the two as well. So it's not planned. It wasn't by it wasn't by design, but it's just become my love, and that's how I've got into all of this. And
that's actually very interesting. I didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know you have a family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah, family from your family is half Ethiopian. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Half Tigray, I didn't know that. So this love for Oromo and Tigray comes from your relationship in Tigray, and also your cultural love from Raya. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Well, it came from that, but then it came my advocacy towards like obviously Tigray was the first entrance and that's my children. I'm fighting for my children's existence, you know. So when I was always vocal, but like I said, underneath this alias and underneath another, because it's kind of difficult for a Westerner or a perceived Westerner to come in and speak on issues at any point. So I just kind of blended into the background. But I actually started a podcast just after Hachalu died, because that's what opened my eyes. And I was like, hang on. Well, and I think I had read a report that was like, they said the Oromo people killed him. And I was like, why would they kill their own superstar? This just doesn't make sense. So I started to dig deeper and stuff. And I did this secret podcast for about 2 or 3 months before the war actually started. And then I was like, no, you can't. I have to learn more. Like I honestly, I didn't know enough about Oromian politics beforehand or the struggle. And I feel guilty for that. I could have investigated a long time ago, but you know, when you're in your bubble of your people, you don't like branch out too much until like is pushed into your face.
Exactly.
And then from there, like Abiy is #1 enemy to everyone, and that became very, very like that was clear to me at the beginning, but it became very clear after Hachalu died. Like,
did you come to any clear conclusion on who you think is behind the killing of Hachalu?
Him,
Abiy, right?
Abiy, his consort. I don't know if you see. I nickname like all of the groups, and I call them the PP cult.
Yeah, exactly.
I truly believe the Prosperity Party has become a cult.
Right. Exactly.
Will probably get hunted down for that, or I call them as well the neo-Derg. So the introduction or the reintroduction of the Derg from overseas and allowing them back in and being able to infiltrate into politics again. That's where I think the blame lies. I can't see why Tigrayans wanted to kill Hachalu. I can't see why Oromo wanted to kill Hachalu. And I know you say. I read as well, I don't know, you can clarify it for me. At one point, they said someone with a Tigrayan accent killed. Somewhere they said, it was a Tigrinya speaker, Tigrin Tazarabai, or something like this. And I was like...
So they were saying Tigray killed Hachalu so that way Oromos can get up and help Tigray fight Ethiopia.
Like this doesn't make sense to me. Abiy's best friend is Isaias Afwerki. What language does he speak? He speaks Tigrinya. So it could have been Hegdef as well. Like it could, that's my other name, the Hegdef Mafia or the Suagrads, the Soagrads. I nicknamed them all. It could have been any one of those groups that is now inside Tigray and inside Oromia. And it could have been one sniper from any of them. We don't know.
Right.
I don't think there's ever going to be conclusive investigations.
It gotta be. I looked into it too. So for me, everything points directly to the PP cult you're mentioning. Because Tigray is not even in war with Abiy yet when they killed Hachalu.
No.
It was like 4 months after it that they went to war. And also, that month before they killed Hachalu, somehow they got all Oromo leaders and all Oromo celebrities like lined up every week. A new celebrity will go on OMN and he will have to support Abiy. Like all of them, literally. Only Hachalu's the only one who didn't support Abiy.
He's the only one that was going to say no.
Yeah. So from day one too, when Abiy was in the come up, Hachalu was very critical of him.
Yeah, I've heard this too. I watched a video the other day. Someone sent it to me of his concert last year, and you could see the PP members were not happy. Like their facial expressions were like
everything points to PP and that Amara community as a whole.
I really don't like this is why I call it the PP cult or the neo-Derg. Like I don't like to just say Amhara, and because I get attacked for saying that, and because I recognize that there has to be, you can't bulk everybody into one group, and I don't feel like that's just personally, I don't like to do that, label everyone, and I'll say that it's the elite, you know, the elite are the ones that are doing this, because the elites don't seem to care about the people in Amhara state either. And the reason I don't now, like I'll call them the Fano fanatics, but you know, there was the locust invasion that happened just prior to the war. That happened in Tigray, that happened in Amhara. The elite weren't saying anything about those locusts. So the whole thing just makes me go, it's this cult. Everything is behind the cult and their desire or dream to have a single ruler again. It's like they can't let go of imperialism. They can't let go of having a figurehead in place by God. Like that's what imperialism, having a king or an emperor, like the power is derived from God into that person. It's like they can't, these elites or these cult members cannot get past the idea that you can have a democratic system. They just can't. It has to be. Yeah. So anyway, that's why I think it's them.
So
this groupthink mentality.
This crisis in Ethiopia, this heavy conflict in Ethiopia started when Abiy formed the PP after he took the power. He formed the PP. PP basically means centralized federal government, all power in the federal government, no more state powers. Why do you think Abiy did that? Is it a straight up a dictator playbook he's playing, or why do you think he did that? Why did he take the state powers away?
Well, I think it comes down to who's backing him. Neo-Derg, if I call them the Neo-Derg, that was their mentality, that was their ethos, and that was their constitution. So I think a lot of it comes down to his backing. Isaias is exactly the same. He wants to have centralized power he does have centralized power in Eritrea. There's nothing. I think there's a joke at one point and he says, what election? You know, they said, when is an election going to be held? And he says, what election? So I think it's part of that mentality as well. But then you hear stories like Abiy's mum said he was going to be the next emperor. And in his identity crisis of who is he, who does he belong to? Is he Oromo? Is he Amhara? God knows who his father is. Like, is that really his father? He's just grappled psychologically to the idea that he has to be the emperor. And however I become the emperor is however I become the emperor. Whoever I use to get me there is who I will use to get me there. So I think part of it has to do with his own psychological issues that he needs to come to terms with. But also it's just he's got this backing and you know what it's like if you're in a soccer team and you know there's one player that's starting to weaken, the rest of the players like push them along and egg them on, and I feel like that's what this cult mentality is. They're all patting each other's ego to get them across the line, you know, get one more goal, let's go guys, like I did a video on it at the start, like, you know, they're like a team, like come on you can do it, you know, like they just egg each other on. And I feel like that's why he's formed the cult, or he's formed the Prosperity Party, was to get that feel good mentality around him. I mean, prosperity comes from that feeling of, you know, everybody's going to be great and wonderful and glorious and God's going to get us there, but just so long as we have the right leader and I can do that. He's very charismatic as well. Like without understanding Amharic, you can see just in his language, like that's how he won the Westerners. He is charismatic and I can bring peace and love and harmony. So he's maintained this like tornado effect, I guess, of pulling. And that's why, it's formed. But as well, to the other thing, sorry, if you want to cut in, like cut me off.
You're talking some good points.
The other thing that I truly believe is with this is that centralization of power, not only that, but of ethnicity. So, and the removal of ethnicity, because it's a for the Derg, they saw different ethnicities as a stumbling block to development. Where during, you know, the EPRDF time, the ethnicities were allowed to be who they are allowed to be, and it's just bizarre how they don't see that actually made things prosperous in many, many ways. But this removal, I think they have this mentality, and it comes back to a communist mentality, that if you are only one ethnicity or one nation, things will get done a lot quicker. But in reality, that just doesn't work, because
dictatorship.
It's dictatorship, but it's also cleansing. Like it's ethnic cleansing of any nationality. If you have this centralized government that removes that Article 39, which is designed to allow people for their self-determination, you can't lose that power. You can't lose that power over those people. And I truly believe that by centralizing the government, again, is dictatorship, but is also wiping out the Constitution and changing that Article 39. So
right. That's my next question.
Yeah, so these revolutions can't happen again.
Oromos, we have been challenging that Article 39 since 1991, because 1991 they cheated us.
Yeah, I understand it.
So they always say no to us because we didn't have army.
Mm-hmm.
When we had army, it was too small. After 1991, our army has always been so small that Ethiopia is not respecting Oromo.
Mm-hmm.
With Tigray having such a big army, Abiy, until he defeats Tigray, he will never have that dream, that seventh king dream.
Yeah.
Is that why he's not respecting the Tigray election?
100%. My thinking on that is, in some ways, the Tigrayans were showing defiance. Like, in some ways they were a red rag to a bull, because the thing is, Abiy has already consolidated power in every region prior to the election. Right. There was no choice for Oromia to have their election because the PP was already in power. Right. In Amhara region, they had already dissolved the ADP. They were already in power in every region, basically. And the exactly. At this point before the election were the last people standing, saying, no, our people didn't vote the Prosperity Party in. Our people voted us in 5 years ago. If they want to vote the Prosperity Party, then they can run in an election. This is the election year. This is when it's supposed to happen. So in some ways, they were like, you can't touch us. This is our constitutional right. And they were right. And they were the last man standing in this takeover for PP. And like Abiy says, in his mind, this is a law enforcement operation, which was to remove the TPLF to then transplant his PP. It failed. It's failed miserably. He thinks it was going to happen in 3 weeks. It's now 4 months. It hasn't happened. Deon is still alive. Getachew Reda is still alive.
It's not just that. What they killed so far is just civilians.
Exactly. They haven't. I mean, civilians.
Tigray still has 300,000 standing men armed.
Oh, and I believe it will increase. I mean, the thing is, if there was a safe entry from the diaspora to enter, and and I said this in one of my posts, if there was a safe entry for the Oromo or the Tigrayans to get back to Oromia or Tigray in the diaspora, they wouldn't be sitting here online. They don't want to be. Like, I talk to so many young boys. They don't want to be here. They don't want. But the problem is, if you fly into Addis, you get detained at Bole. Right. So whether you're Oromo, whether you're Tigray, if you fly to Addis, you'll be detained. It's like trying to find entry points from either Sudan or Kenya, if that's even possible.
Maybe they need to, become Abiy supporters for 1 month in diaspora, fly to Addis, trick them.
Do like he did, be a wolf in sheep. A sheep.
You gotta trick the trick. You gotta trick the trickster.
Wolf. Yeah. I don't know. I think he's too paranoid for that now. But back to the thing, like the point, like, there's 300,000 that are still there fighting. The only people that Abiy's arrested are ex-politicians.
Seniors.
That are no longer
people that can't even move.
People. I mean, I took a week off, and during that week is when they revealed the bodies of the 3 politicians. I can't remember their names. I'm really hopeless at remembering ex-TPLF, the 3 TPLF politicians. One of them was blind, and he had no arm. What? How is this law and order? What is the justification here? Right. This is just a death sentence. What law were you actually following to arrest and kill a man who can't even defend himself? He's blind. He doesn't know where you're coming from. Dude, like, he's not
they were looking for a trophy to show off. They couldn't come up with the trophy. So they came up with some sort of cancellation.
And it's
presentation.
Just to keep his following happy. Right. Look, we got these people. Well, they weren't doing anything now. Like, yes, okay, if you want to give them their day in court, he could have arrested them properly and put them, like, Sebat Nega is in court, like, has gone to court, he's in prison, and they want to put him through a trial. Okay. That's law and order. shooting a blind man is not law and order, and saying
Right.
he was trying to defend himself. With what? Where was he gonna, like, what logic is this? There's just nothing. This whole law and order mission was literally just to transplant his PP in there. And he's done it and they failed. The people,
Right.
the crazy part is he truly believed that the people would want him there. That's the part I don't understand. Like, he believes that the Tigrayan people wanted him there, or he believes that the Oromo people want him there. No, they don't. Like, they don't. They do not want you there. Don't you feel kind of shame?
Why is Abiy using the Amara militias instead of the Ethiopian army?
Well, it gets back to nobody really wants to serve Abiy.
That's so true. That is so true.
Who wants to serve a toddler? Like, a toddler who lied and cheated his way to get into politics.
Right.
Like, people aren't stupid. He lied to get into politics. He lied to the OPDO. He went around and used, from what I understand, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my basic understanding is that he hijacked the Kera movement, lied, got himself elected under their support because he promised all of these things, and then he exterminated those who realized what he was doing, or he failed them. And so that's my understanding. So why not use the ENDF? Well, Tigrayan soldiers are not going to go and fight in Tigray against their family.
Right.
Oromo soldiers are not going to go and fight against their family in Oromia.
Right.
Sidama are not going to go and fight against them. Walaitans aren't going to go and fight against them. Benshangul Gumbas are definitely not going to go and fight for him.
Right.
Like, that's the unhidden part. Like, that's the hidden war going on. So who do you have left? You have the people who have been listening to 27 years of propaganda media by ESAT from outside, from angry diaspora who were kicked out. So you think about the diaspora. Many of them are pissed off because they were kicked out. Why were they kicked out of Ethiopia in 1991, like during the transition? Because they were Derg supporters. And if they they're going to have the law and order put upon them. So the law and order put upon them is charging for war crimes, because the Derg was an absolutely abhorrent regime. So they don't want to lose. So their anger is constantly putting together this media against the people who kicked them out. That's happened in their minds for these 27 years, and they've been passing it on to their family. So then why the innocent people? So that takes care of why the Derg have come back and are so, like, ready to fight. But why the innocent? Like, why the Amhara militia? Why get the farmers together? This is a far out theory, and we can go into conspiracy if you think, but he didn't. I mentioned the locusts earlier. The locusts completely devastated Raya Kobo. My friends were in Raya Azabo at the time. They would cross over down to Alamata and further down. They said they've got nothing left. Like, absolutely nothing. They were destroyed. So Abiy as well, listen, he knows these locusts are coming. This has to be a plan. He knows they're coming. He didn't do anything to prevent it. He was given 50 or 60 million US dollars to prevent it. Nothing. So these farmers are desperate. How do you get desperate people to fight for you? You promise them something on the other side. So he's using that. My belief is how he motivated them was, look, the locusts killed you. They don't know that this money was given to them and that he's completely denied them. He said, if you fight for me, you'll get farmland in Raya Azabo. You'll get farmland in Tigray if you fight for me. So he uses, and he used them as cannon fodder. Like, unfortunately, when you look at the first, like, few weeks of the war, he did it in, like, human waves. So he sent them through, and they got completely wiped out. So then as well, you have people coming back that aren't going to be able, so that creates more fear inside the people. Oh my God, we're completely under threat. So he's very good at fear tactics, and I think he gets these things from Isaias. I believe that he is using the Fano because they have grievances. So they have grievances from the background. That it's all a psychological warfare. This game, this war is not just guns and weapons. Like this is all psychological. He plays with the north, like the west of Tigray as well, like the Wolkite people. A lot of them are upset because they were Derg soldiers. Their children in the diaspora were born in refugee camps in Sudan. They've got this big loud voice and this big loud backing. They're the ones we see here in Australia that went up to Canberra and protested. So he's using them because, number one, like I said, Oromo aren't going to fight Oromo. Tigray aren't going to fight Tigray. He's got grievances, or he's got backing from Amhara elite. He's the Fano have nothing. The Amhara farmers have nothing because he allowed the locals to destroy their land. So that gives them motivation to, well, we need to be able to support, like they're surviving. So, but the other thing is, why is he using them and the Eritrean forces? How many are left? This is where we have to look as well. There was 110,000 ENDF soldiers on the books prior to the war. There is like 30,000 left. Where did they go? He has no other choice.
Right.
His army has either defected completely and gone to their respective nations, or they've been lost in the war. He's got left. Why doesn't he defend against Sudan?
Right. Well, why do you think? Yeah, he doesn't defend against Sudan too, because if he goes, maybe that is the only smart thing he did.
Maybe
if he fought those two wars on two fronts, he would go down in 1 week, not even a week.
Well, I think that this is the thing, because there's a media blackout. So if you're not like paying attention to like what comes out of Tigray very often, which people don't like, and the Westerners, they don't really believe what they hear out of Tigray either. They're like, oh no, you know, this is just, it's going to be them telling their story of their side of the war. And then now that investigations have come in, they're like, oh, they were kind of telling us the truth. So, you know, the Tigrayans have been saying the women have been getting raped. They have been saying that massacres have been happening, and all of this stuff was unproven until the Western like media was allowed in, like the last 2 or 3 weeks. But they have also said there is no army left. They have captive, I can't remember the numbers. Like, I'm really bad at numbers and these figures. But at one point I heard there was like 60,000 ENDF soldiers as prisoners of war, kept alive. So he's got nobody left to fight for him. There's nobody left to fight for him. His army is weak. Right. And that's why he's bringing Eritreans in, because
they try to recruit young Oromos. They tried so hard in Oromo region, but it's not going to be successful because they hate him.
No, I hope so. Like, honestly, like that's my biggest.
What do you think of this guy? Looks like his father, maybe. Why is he involved Israelis like that?
You saw my post the other day? What was it?
Yeah, he's probably going to tell us who his father is.
I said, I think I've got it here. No. Yeah, basically, Abby, we don't know who his father is. I don't know if it's true that his father's Oromo. Like, I kept saying that after on my podcast. I'll give you a link to it later. But if you were truly Oromo, you wouldn't turn your back on your people like this. Like, that's not the culture as I understand it. I mean, I understand that there has been in history like people that have turned their back, and unfortunately, that's been like that they have given their people over. But Abby, like, I just don't believe it. Like, maybe Ice is his father. Maybe he's another Eritrean. Who knows? Like, a DNA test would.
Abiy makes an excellent puppet. You know, in all third worlds, you know, puppets are the ones that are gonna get the chance. Yeah. For instance, this is like Abiy in 2010. He's running as in, you know, Obo, Mr. You know, his name is up here. He's running for election. Yeah. But they put Mr. over there. But suddenly 3 years later, you know, he came as a, you know, doctorate. You know.
Where did you get that doctorate?
You know, this is Africa.
It was really funny. It was
every mother and father says, you know, my son should be a lawyer or a doctor. That's why they play it with our mind, with lawyers and doctor. And the new thing is Africanist developments. Now everybody's engineer now.
Yes, they are.
Like literally 50% of Ethiopia's politicians are made up of engineers, supposedly.
Well, that doesn't give you much political backing or legal backing. Like in Australia and America, you're meant to have some legal understanding. And I don't think Dubbii has any. Like, what was his doctorate on? On peace and conflict resolution. I think that's what his thesis is based on. Something to do with international peace and resolution or something. It's like, yeah, you didn't learn much. No.
We don't have a single picture of him in any universities.
Well,
what kind of college student doesn't have a college picture?
Especially, like, no offense, but especially in Ethiopian culture, like if somebody's got a degree, like that's your family photo. It's there. The point in the middle of your wall, like, yes, my son or my daughter's got, you know, their hat on, they're graduating, and yeah, where is his pictures? I read one, it was like in some, I think it was actually the World Kite Times or something. It was some article, and they went through the timeline of his life, and they were like, you managed to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and you're only 42. People who have usually achieved all of this are in their 70s. Like, how is this even rational? But you know, this website's probably gone back and supporting him now, so I don't know. But it was really funny when I read it, because it just doesn't make any sense. How can you have a doctorate when I think at that time he was serving as intelligence officer or something, and he fought in Badami. Like, when did he have time to do this? Theses take a long time.
Right. I think he was just maybe just thirsty for all those things that he saw when he was, you know, a little puppet. They used him in the military to go buy cigarette, to go buy chat. You know, that's how he got into the military.
Like I said, it was his ego. I think this whole thing is his ego, and he keeps getting fanned along by people him feel good about himself, because he doesn't know who he himself is. Like, if we go on a philosophical deep level, like, the guy doesn't know who he is. If he really doesn't know who his father is, he's got a lot of inner turmoil, and anybody who makes him feel good about himself is who he's going to choose sides with. So if Oromo are calling him out on his crap, and they're like, nah, dude, like, this isn't right, he's gonna turn his back, because he needs people around him to make him feel good.
Exactly.
He needs him to boost him up, and they obviously saw through him very quickly, as anyone would if you like your care of friends and family have disappeared after this guy's come into power, who was meant to be there on their back, and then your musicians die, your politicians all get arrested. You know, like Bekele Gerber goes up to make peace with Tigray, and all of a sudden he's in prison.
Right.
I'm not going to trust you, Abby. Like,
right.
You're not going to have Oromo to fight for you. They don't want to. They don't like you.
Exactly. So now the election is June 5th.
That's not going to happen.
So he tried to make this election legitimate by forcing Oromos to participate, but Oromos, they're not participating.
How can you have an election when your politicians are in prison? And the one region who did try to have an election, or did have a successful election, you bombed.
Right.
Because, Abby, you don't want to have an election. Like, if you've only got one choice to vote for PP, that is not an election. And that is definitely not, how did he come in saying he was a democratic reformer?
Right.
A democracy requires multiple parties to run.
Right.
Abby, you've imprisoned everybody, not just in Oromia, in Somali, in the southern regions, like integrate anybody who was against you. What's the even point of having an election, really, at this point? It's just another waste of taxpayers' money, because there's nobody to run. Unless he lets Johar out on, like, which he might, on the 4th of June, you know, like a day before. Right. How have they time to bring up their campaigns? How can you have an election when you've closed all the offices of the people you haven't imprisoned?
Right. First he promised developments. When that didn't work, he tried to force the politicians to participate, while half of their other politicians are in jail. So the developments he promised is he promised to build like 3 New York cities in Oromia. He's going to build the New York cities in Oromia. And he promises like 22 highways.
So let me just see if
and also the first stock market in Ethiopia.
Oh.
So these are like one of the major.
All of these assets. Where did these assets come from? And these businesses that have a stock market. And where were the cities going to be, by the way? The 3 New Yorks.
They're going to be in Oromo. He's going to turn Ambo into New York City.
Okay.
He's going to build another New York City outside of Finfinne, the capital city. And then he's going to build another New York City in Borana. I'll show you the video. You will look at the video. How about that? You know, this PP cultist stuff is not explainable because it's weird stuff. You know, it's not real. It's fake.
Adu sente batu wanu makiniada. Adu sente batu wanu makiniada. Urjiji argus jalalaken ada. Bona figani arfata bibirra ya danona fidan jalalaketira ya danona fidan jalalaketira.
Looks like Singapore to me.
Oda behind me, he's gonna build us like a 50-story tower like that with Oda.
Have you ever seen the kids movie Shrek?
Yeah.
So there's this joke and they say the king, I don't know what his name is, Farquaad. And Shrek goes in and he's got this massive tower and he goes, is he overcompensating for something? Like indicating because Farquaad's so short, maybe other parts of him are short, so he has to have this big tower. Like, is that the same, Abby? Are you overcompensating for something?
That's one of the city. You saw the background of that, or how big the towers are. They're even bigger than New York City towers.
Like I said, it looks like Singapore. It looks more like a cross between Singapore and Abu Dhabi or Dubai.
Yeah. What about this one? This one is the one he's going to build outside of Finfinne, the capital city. So he's going to build this outside of the capital city for us.
Oh, that's so nice. Where are all the farmers going? And the people?
But
Abby, is that how you got into power?
This project is probably going to be done 3,000 years from today.
And with whose money?
We don't know.
Where's the economy coming from? Because that's kind of come to a halt. Where is he?
And this guy is very ridiculous. Like, he's the most ridiculous.
It explains why he's obsessed with trees. Have you ever noticed whenever there's a crisis, Abby comes out and he posts about either watering the plants or, he posts about the environment. Every time
it's the Oromo thing. Oromos, we take care of the environment, our symbols. Yes, we love the land, like we take care of the land.
Well, even today, yesterday he made the rain come, right? Like everything about him has to boil down to nature. I'm like, yeah, you can look after the economy, the nature, but you got to have an economy, dude. Like, if you don't have ways to make money, how are you going to pay for all of this stuff?
And the third New York City is here. Here is the third New York City in Ambo.
Ambo Nijarra, Ambo Njijirra, akka maqaashee New York ni goona.
How is getting the votes? Is he
Kasich,
from Ambo?
I need you to believe me.
Doesn't he change his
mind? I need you to believe me, Kasich. I need you to believe me. I'm going to send my own rocket to the moon tomorrow morning. You better believe it.
You rocket?
If you can believe Abi will do all this stuff, you should believe I will send my own rocket tomorrow morning. When I get off the show, I'm going to go down to my basement. I'm going to develop a rocket and I'm going to send it to the moon tomorrow morning.
the what kind of technology? The world's technology has never even seen these rainmaking machines. I was laughing so hard yesterday. People were like literally showing the radar, the weather radar on Twitter, and they're like, "Yeah, it didn't rain. It didn't rain. It rained with bullets."
Abiy is very, very ridiculous.
He's beyond ridiculous. Like,
can you tell me what Abiy actually has done for Ethiopia? Because he already ate 2 years, 2 years and few months. He already used up 2 years and few months. What has he achieved for this country? Has he done any work?
Civil war.
1.
Failed elections.
2.
Imprisoned politicians.
3.
Imprisoned military.
4.
Alienated the rest of his neighbors.
5.
So, yeah, Sudan. Sold the bird.
6.
He made peace with his eyes. Come on.
Okay.
That was a great achievement, wasn't it?
What about the economy? The bird is like $60 bird to $1 now.
Well, I guess we have a good reason to go and visit, because the diaspora is going to have a lot of money to spend there. I don't know what he's done. I don't think they can even give me one good thing he's done. I guess the only good thing he's done is brought internet.
So there is a lady who goes from a countryside. A lady, breaks up a firewood and she puts it on her donkey and she brings it to the market and she sells these wood, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen those ladies.
Now these ladies, after they sell their wood, and now they have to load up the money on the donkey because there was so much money now, because the money, like the economy failed, like the donkey have to carry the load twice now because of Abiy.
Well, that's another thing. He changed the banknotes.
Yeah, we changed that one too.
And well, what else did he do? The thing that makes me laugh, not laugh, like it's sad. He carried on about the park, oh my God, at the start of the war. But I built this park in Finfinne, I built this park, I built this memorial park. It took them so long and I built it. And then I discussed with someone, I'm like, well, I don't get what's going on here. They said the reason he built the park is he literally kicked everybody off. There was people still living there. And the reason the park was taking so long is because the condominiums needed to be built. People needed to be compensated. There was a process. It's a long process to expand the land.
Wasn't that an old project already anyway?
Yeah, so it was an old project that was taking a really long time, apparently.
Right. And then he came at the end and basically took the credit.
But he took the credit, but it was still taking a long time because there was still people that he needed to relocate.
Mm-hmm.
There were still people that needed to be relocated, and he just pushed them out. And so he just built it. I mean, it's easy if you're just going to steal people's homes and push them out and make them homeless. Anybody can do that and build a country. It's not just, it's a violation of everybody's human rights. But that's Abiy.
For sure. Now, to get rid of Abiy, why should Oromo Liberation Army team up with Tigray Defense Forces?
Okay, I'll get to my answer. But basically, I have what I think. Basically, they have the same enemy and they want the same things. At this point, I don't think the Tigray army started off with any thoughts of independence.
Right.
Speaking to my friends and prior to the election, I was already just in my own head thinking, well, if I had to vote, I would probably vote for the Independence Party because I didn't like Abiy from the start. I was like, I can't see any prosperous future with this guy.
Right.
So if I'd had my choice, that's probably where I wanted to go. Most people will say that the TPLF at that time, when they didn't want to have independence, but if you look at the environment that the diaspora is saying, there's nobody that wants to be part of this union anymore.
Nope.
It's dead.
Nope.
And I know that's the plight for the Oromo people. I know they don't want to be part of it anymore. It's an experiment. In my eyes, Ethiopia was an experiment. it was an experiment to join them all together. Okay. And it was an experiment that kind of needed to happen because it was already there. Like if you're in like a science lab and you've got these like 2 beakers and you need to like make your experiment happen, you try it for a little bit. And Melis tried it. It was successful in some ways, very unsuccessful in many other ways. So
Right.
I don't really want to dwell on the past. The past is the past, but the experiment failed, and it failed when he died. Like like in my eyes, it failed. The minute he died, this experiment could never be held together. It was too fragile.
Right.
So for me, and this is only my own opinion. I'm not Tigrayan. I don't have a right to vote. I don't have a right to persuade the people of what they want to do. But at the end of the day, if the 2 voices from the outside unite together, like, and I strongly believe that you and I, anybody outside doesn't have the right to decide what the people on the inside want because they're living there. Like, this is their reality. But our job is from the outside. So to have this alliance from the outside to highlight who Abiy is, highlight who Isaias is to the world, make it very clear. Like, our job is to put is to shine the light of truth onto what's going on. So have this alliance on the outside, shine that light of truth so the outside world, and it's been working. Like, the West, America knows what Abiy is about now. Like,
right.
beforehand, he was able to manipulate. And I think the Derg were able to continue on manipulating the narrative of their politics for this long time because the people inside the people still inside Ethiopia were just busy focusing on building, not really talking and complaining and, they did this, they did that. Like, it was more just, let's just get to business. And there was no other international media for the people outside. Anyway, so my thinking is, from the outside, shine that light of truth so that the people on the inside are able to do their jobs. Abiy's ousted, which means humiliation, which means he gets weakened. He's becoming weakened now. He will become weakened. Isaias, like, Eritrea has sanctions on them, not for what's happening in Tigray, but for what they do to their own people. And that's only from pressure from the outside. So uniting together can continue that pressure.
But if we united,
on the outside,
right.
Make it clear. Like, when I say united, it's to oust Abiy. So that is to get him gone. Okay. Right. So the outside world will put pressure on him to cease fire over all Ethiopia and resign. That's my. So from this unity outside, the protest that's happening tomorrow in DC, or is it the next day? Tomorrow or the next day? There's a protest that's happening in DC, if that voice together is so loud, the outside world has no choice but to listen to the people that are ousting him, ceasefire. But then the next part of that is that once
this is leading to like the final question: what is the solution? But before we get there, let's focus on because right now is Eritrean forces and the Amara militias fighting Tigray and Oromo. Right now, Eritrea is independent from Ethiopia. So all they want from Ethiopia is money. That's the number one thing they want. So all these help Abiy is receiving, like, he's literally sending to large percentage of it, he's sending it to Israel. So when this happens, now the Oromo army and the Tigray army, if they work together and fight together, like 1990.
Yeah. The 80s to the 90s. Yep.
Right. And they got rid of Mengistu. In the same fashion, after they got rid of Mengistu, Tigray Defense Force, which back then is called the TPLF, did a bad faith negotiation with OLF.
I understand this.
So because of that, now when we fight this war with TPLF, should we keep? Should the two parties keep their distance and demand independence? Both of them declare independence.
I think
because NATO's gonna call these guys together. Like, NATO's gonna give these guys to fight each other out. The war is going to go on for 2 more years. For sure, it's going to go on for 2 more years. On the third year, or right when we reach 2 year, NATO is going to invite all four of them. Like they're going to invite Israelis, they're going to invite TPLF, they're going to invite OLF, they're going to invite the Amara militias too.
To come and talk.
Yeah, everybody that got guns will be invited. Everybody that don't have guns, they will not be invited as usual. So when these guys get invited, NATO is going to pick one of them, and he's going to set up the other 3 to fail.
This is where I often get criticized, or people I don't necessarily agree with international intervention on this point. I believe that to put the outside pressure on for Abiy if they can, but to interfere in this kind of internal thing, I think it has to come from the politicians. And I think people have to take the leadership from Bakala Garba, who tried to already bring together peace. He came out and said, it was the OPDO who has been doing this to me for all of these years. He's came out and tried to create reconciliation. And I truly, I don't want to focus on the past. I understand the wounds of the past are there. And I understand why there is a lot of people in both camps that don't want to work together. A lot of Oromo are very upset of what happened in the 90s, and that's justifiable. A lot of Tigrayans are very upset because the TPLF keep getting blamed for things that the EPRDF were doing. So there is this understanding that needs to happen. It's not easy. It's reconciliation. But if South Africa can get reconciliation, the TPLF and the OLF can get reconciliation too, on a political sense. So that takes dialogue. That, for me, there's two parts we're looking at. The political arms need to create dialogue. So the likes of the
even if they create dialogue, doesn't the options come down to two choices? One, we're gonna power share Ethiopia. TPLF and OLF will say we're gonna power share again like 1991, and one of them is gonna eliminate the other one. Option two is Tigray becomes independent, Oromia becomes independent, and that one is the more clear piece for the future that I see.
That's how I see it.
Because one of the army have to be dissolved.
Pardon?
If they're gonna say power share Ethiopia again like 1991, they have to dissolve. They have to get rid of one of the army.
Yeah, I get that. So for me, it's like, and whenever I talk, please, I'm not talking on behalf of the Tigrayan people. I'm not talking. Like, this is my own opinions and my own thoughts. I feel like there is a way that the scholars, the politicians, even historians can come together in some kind of round table agreement or discussions. What do they call them? A think tank. We have many scholars outside of Tigray and Oromia at the moment in the diaspora that can come together and discuss the kind of arrangements that, so in any revolution around the world, in Europe especially, like I know most about it, there is always the fighters, so the people on the ground, so the TDF and the OLA, and then there's the thinkers. And it's those thinkers that come together with the solutions or the dialogue. So if that can happen quite quickly and an end agreement is made to, like, look, we don't have to have everything written down, but this is our rough plan of where we want to go. Like, okay, can we agree that this and this, these are our two goals? We agree on this now. There is a way that you can do this then without inviting NATO to bring NATO in. If the political leaders, and it's hard, and that's why Abiy has specifically imprisoned them. He has specifically imprisoned the Oromian political leaders so they can't have this dialogue with the TPLF leaders. If there is a way that they can have people from the outside negotiate for them on behalf of them, so if Johar and Bakala can or any of them can appoint another discussion or leadership from the outside to have these dialogues with the TPLF, and they come to some kind of agreement. Look, before we go into this together, this is what we're going to do, and they have it. So it's actually clear and transparent. This trickery can't happen again. If it's clear that these are our goals, then there is no reason why the two armies can't fight together. It's made clear from the academics and from the thinkers and from, you know, even getting historians in, having some brief kind of discussion about, okay, this is what we're going to do about these regional areas. Perhaps we're going to look at a confederation kind of union, like not a federation, like we're separate countries, but we're joined together by a central body. There's so many different ideas that can be put together, but it requires dialogue. So it requires political dialogue from the outside or from the leaders. Unfortunately, we can't get them out. Like, and that's why the TPLF was saying at the very beginning, we can't come and talk with you, Abiy, until you let everybody out, because he kept trying to pull them back to Addis or Finfinne, and they kept saying, we can't talk with you if we don't have Jawhar, we don't have Bakala in the room. You have them in prison. Let them out, and we will talk about the election. But he doesn't.
Abiy, all these little tricks he's doing, he learned from TPLF. They trained him on all these little tricks he's doing, so nobody's gonna trust anybody.
Well, this is the point. Like, for me, okay, we know that that's happened. We know, but you know as well, like I don't stand on side of the TPLF or of the OLF of anyone. I just stand for the people, and what I see is the rational thing. If you're in a bad marriage and you want to exit that bad marriage, you need to have some kind of discussion, but you also need to have some kind of thing that is like, okay, once we've healed enough individually, then we can tackle the tough stuff.
Right.
So tackling the tough stuff of the past,
right,
yes, it needs to happen. Reconciliation can happen, but people need to be free first. So the immediate wounds need to be healed first. Right. So there is a chronic wound that is happening, that is festering in the background. We understand that. I understand that. I know you understand that. I know the people of Tigray both have their grievances. Okay, so they're both people see this in their own political sphere or what's happened. Okay, and that's going to be there, but that doesn't mean that you can't focus on the acute problem, and that acute problem is to get rid of Abiy, so that we start healing. And like I said, if South Africa can have reconciliation from the apartheid, there is no reason that the Oromo people and the Tigray people cannot have that. And there is no reason that they cannot have discussion and forgiveness and moving forward between the TPLF and OLF. It does not mean that they become one union again. It just means that they acknowledge the past, but they move forward. You can't continue to focus on that past. Like I said, if it's a bad marriage and you separate and you have kids and you're sitting there blaming. Oh, you did this and you did this and you did this and you did this, but you did this and first and you did that. Who's going to suffer? You're going to suffer. So until we don't separate,
that's why even in diaspora, here in Minnesota too, and in DC, that is why we understand each other's protest. TPLF and Oromo protest and Tigray protest understands each other now. We will merge together on a protest once now and then now. Well, because at this moment, TPLF is the lesser enemy to us. That's why we rather work with them than working with Abiy, who pretended to look like us. When we close our eyes, he bites us.
Yeah, there's definitely that. And like I said, I can't speak. I'm not an expert on what's happened in Oromia. I know bad things have happened, but I also take a lot of like solace when I hear what Bakala Gerber said. Like basically, label the right enemy. The right enemy was the OPDO. If the coalition existed, they were responsible for things, and that's where everybody needs to have some kind of understanding. And unfortunately, there's no clarity. Who did this? Who did what in what region? I don't know. Like, I'm not an investigator, but it starts with labeling the right group that did it. But again, this is not something that we can really like. And what's his name? Someone did come out and say afterwards, we didn't know this was happening. We were in Tigray. We didn't know what was happening in Oromia, and it does make sense. I had a discussion with an Amhara girl once. And she was saying, oh, but the TPLF, did this thing to Amhara women where they couldn't have babies. And I was like, okay, let me explain this to you, like break it down. If there's a project that, yes, the head of the health ministry may have been from the TPLF. If he says this is the project, these are the medications you have to give, you have to go and roll it out. He doesn't have time to go and see how every health clinic that the ADP, so the ADP, he gives the project to them and he's like, you go and implement it. If he doesn't have time, I wouldn't have time if I'm a manager to go and check on every single project. I just get the reports. So there has to come to some kind of understanding, and I don't know how we come to it, but that just because somebody was in leadership doesn't mean they're the ones who implemented the plans. Does that make sense? So you can give somebody a project and say, look, this is the project. We want to increase contraception in the region. Why? Because it will decrease infant mortality rate. It will decrease, female death rate through pregnancy. It decreases hunger and poverty because people are overproducing and they don't have enough food. So we want to implement some kind of contraception. This is the program. This is the medication. ADP, go and roll it out. ADP, go and roll it out. If they don't do it ethically and they don't tell their nurses or their healthcare workers, don't give the women the correct education. But then they get their reports together. The healthcare workers go back and say, yep, we did it all. It's all been implemented. Look, all our vials are gone. Yeah, great work. If nobody questions them there, like from their management, and then they report back, whose fault is it? You can't blame that purely on the minister. Like it's the people who implemented it. So I think that's what Bekele Gerber is getting at. Yes, there were people, and again, I'm not a political, I'm not on anyone's side. Just breaking things down. If you can break things down, then reconciliation can happen. But again, that's not the core of the point. Like at this point, it's get rid of Abiy, regain control of your lands, your sovereign lands, and then come together with the plan that you put together at the start, that the elite and the politicians put together at the start. Right. If you're focusing on the future, there is no reason why they can't work together. If there is some goal and there is accountability to that goal. And I believe in social media, this is a social media age.
Right.
I think nobody had accountability. Right. Whatever was signed in the bush stayed in the bush.
Right.
Whatever is going to be signed or discussed can be signed and discussed at a broad level, publicized.
Right.
So these agreements, people have to hold accountability for them now.
For sure.
And I think that's definitely a way that they can work together, because the people can hold them accountable of what they say this time. Anybody.
Right. I think there is many ways and there is many options available. Oromos, we always make one mistake over and over.
What's that?
At the end of the war, they always tell us, put your gun down and come to the meeting. And we put our guns down and we go to the meeting and we get shot at the meeting.
I've read that not even just from this time. I've got this book. Someone recommended it to me. And that was basically during Mengistu's time, prior to Mengistu, every time.
Every single time. Every leader did that. Nobody can beat us. When we go to war, nobody can beat us.
Well, I'm seeing that.
Within Ethiopia.
I'm loving Dalmaru, by the way.
Within Ethiopia, within Africa, nobody can really beat Oromos. Maybe Nigerians would, right? So right after we win, we got these leaders who put the guns down and then they go to meeting and they always get shot.
See, I think
when your leader gets shot, it takes time to get another leader. That's the big problem we're dealing with.
Well, I guess you're dealing with that with Johar and the other politicians.
Yeah, they didn't believe in guns. They forced the youth to put down their guns, and they end up empty-handed.
Yeah.
So that unfortunate part, I believe, will stop with this with the new generation. So even when Abiy tried to convince from about close to 2,000 people, I would say about 1,500 put down their guns, but the other 500 didn't put down their guns. So that survival thing was able to, that 500 that didn't put their guns down was able to keep that Oromo sovereignty.
And I know a lot of people are saying that. I've been reading some tweets from somebody who has been very supportive of the Tigrayan people, but is very scared of the OLF. Like, I think there's a lot of fear as well. There's a lot of fear, and that's not the OLF's fault necessarily, or the OLA's fault. I think I had a very bad opinion of them before because I didn't know anything, and I just knew what I was hearing. Like, right. So I think I didn't know that there was an organization. I didn't know they were an organization, so I was under this impression as well. And eat humble pie very, very, it's very hard. Like, it's not hard. I feel ashamed that I didn't know more, that it was an organized organization, and that there was rules, and that there was regulations, and that there was, clarity. And I think I don't, like you said, you've invited me on because I like to talk the truth. I don't believe in keeping secrets and lies either.
Right.
Like, I don't believe in the way politics is done in the West. I
Right.
don't in holding all your cards to your chest. I think if you want people to buy into your dream, you've got to be open about it. Like,
Right.
So for example, this lady, she's very, very supportive of Tigray, but very, very anti OLA.
Right.
So, and I see her on Twitter and I see that there's commentary and things, and I go, as somebody from the outside looking in, it's her fear is her home. Her home is, in her eyes, Addis Ababa.
Right.
So if she doesn't know what the plan is, she's just going to keep this vision of, oh my God, we were told OLA were terrorists or OLF were terrorist groups, and they're just going to come, they're just going to blow us up. And so without having clarity and the plan, like I said, people need to be held accountable now. So this is the 21st century. Independence can be, the cards of independence can be held accountable because we have the media, we have things to keep records. Like, so I think just having that clarity as well. Like, okay, this is what our plans are for Finfinne.
Right.
This is what we plan. This is, and it kind of will get more people's support as well. So for me, it's more about, if we want to work together, everybody has to be clear of at least where their goals. There has to be honesty. If there's no honesty and there is no accountability between the two sides, we may have this situation where the guns will get put down and they get shot. And I don't want to see that. Like, if I'm part of advocating for both people, I want to see the truth, and I want to see people speaking the truth, and I want to see people sticking to their words, their accountability and their integrity. If that happens, like if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be humiliated at the end of the day as well, because I've sat here saying the people of Tigray have integrity. The people of Oromia have integrity. And if at the end of the day, one of you stabs each other in the back, I'm stuck there going, well, I was dumb. Like, I don't know who I trust. So at the end of the day, if there is this clear vision, the elite, the scholars get together now. They have their discussions. They pen it down. They make it clear these are our kind of options where we're going to go.
Right.
No reason the future can't be bright. Like, maybe I have a happy dream, the prosperity.
You definitely would have to come back on the show, because we went over an hour. We're like 1 hour and 12 minutes now. We better stop before we get extended too long.
Or I will keep talking if you don't shut me up. So
yeah, for sure. You are definitely invited to this platform anytime you wish to come.
I hope I had a perspective that was a little bit different, and it does give people hope that a unity, especially from the outside, to vocalize the horror is possible, and through dialogue of many people, independence is possible, and dialogue of people taking charge of their own fate without having to get NATO to come in and bring the four sides together. I mean, I would hope that all sides could come together at least now, and maybe have somebody to talk. Nobody. This war doesn't need to go on for 3 years. That's my word. It does not need to continue. It was very easily prevented. Abiy didn't want to prevent it, and that's why he's enemy 101 to me.
Right.
Did not want to have this dialogue.
Right. We don't want to talk about dictator one-man rule as usual. So that got to change. I appreciate it, Kasich, for coming to the show.
Thank you very much.
Like I was saying, you're always welcome here. We're going to have more conversations. Have a blessed day. It's still not really dark over there, but we're in the middle of the night here.
Okay, goodbye. Have a great sleep.
Yeah, take care. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Peace worldwide.
Bye. Bye.
Jabbiloota koo ya jabbiloota odaa jalaa kan nama nyaatu nu keessa jira. Jabbiloota koo ya jabbiloota odaa jalaa kan nama nyaatu nu keessa jira. Amaaloo. facaaba kataati talbaa facaaba kataati tokko du'ee tokkon taa'u wal gaggalaaba kataati wal gaggalaaba kataati emulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa emulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa maasangamaala bambaatu maasangamaala bambaatu talbaa facaaba kataati talbaa facaaba kataati tokko nyaatee tokkon taa'u wal gaggalaaba kataati wal gaggalaaba kataati emulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa emulee agarbatiisa waan ofii maaltu gadhiisa maasangamaala